But in terms of humans, you said that the tribes, some of them uncontacted,
Yeah.
can be exceptionally dangerous. What's your experience with them? What should people learn? Because it's such a fascinating part of life here on Earth that there's tribes that don't have much or any contact with the quote unquote civilized world.
Most of the people that I meet don't actually really understand how isolated these people are, or how weird it is that we're sitting here and that we have iPhones and airplanes and all this stuff, and these people are living naked in the forest at this moment. And so the thing, though, and I also was recently, somebody said, oh, there's like Paleolithic tribes, and it's like, no, just by default they're modern tribes living now. They just happen to be living out in the jungle, and there's a huge debate about, do we try and contact them and bring them in? And there's two camps of people on this who they say that it was the trauma of the rubber boom that sent them out that far into the forest and made them terrified of the outside world. And so that's also what made them so hyper violent. I mean, there's one of the guys we work with on our team, Victor, was in, I think it was 2004. He's coming down river and he had a load of mahogany wood, and he's piloting this boat, and he sent two people, a husband and wife, ahead to go start cooking breakfast on the beach so they could put the little kitchenette thing down and put the propane. He sent them ahead as he's going nice and slow with the barge coming down the river. They go ahead, reach the beach, they get out. He starts cutting some cane to start making a fire. Tribe comes out. No warning. They just start screaming. They start shooting arrows. The man instantly gets an arrow through the leg, and it pins his leg so he can't run. He tells his wife, go, save yourself. And she does. She jumps in the water. There's arrows falling around her too. And as she's floating down the river, she looks back, and the last thing she sees is these guys getting to her husband and beginning to rip him apart. As Victor comes down the river, this is a guy we work with every day, he comes down the river and sees his friend disemboweled, opened up, dissected. His parts are all over the beach. The beach is red. And they only found out what happened because they found her later on holding onto a stick in the river. And they were like, what happened? And she was like, they just attacked. They don't want people on their land. On the sort of the underground WhatsApp chain of the Amazon, in August, like this was not internationally known. Some loggers went up and tried to steal a few trees from where the tribes were. And then everybody sent the pictures of what the loggers looked like after a few days because the tribes porcupined them with arrows. They were laying there on the ground with just arrows sticking out of their bodies. And then eventually the authorities came out and looked, and there was just these white bodies. I'll show you the pictures later. There's just these white puffy bodies with like the skulls sticking out. And it was like, you don't mess with these tribes.
I wonder what's the mythology around that they construct around who these outsiders are. Are they gods? Are they demons? Are they humans? Who are they? Who are we to them?
Well, you got to go back to the rubber boom. The rubber barons went down there, and at the start of the Industrial Revolution, the only way to get rubber was to mine it from the trees that were out in the forest. And so the only way to do that, because you can't make a rubber plantation in the jungle. The rubber, when it's in plantation form, when it's a monoculture, it gets this leaf blight and it all dies. Henry Ford tried it. It didn't work. And so what they did was they sent these people down who just whipped, burned, enslaved, raped, and pillaged the people. It's one of the worst periods in human suffering that I've ever read about. One missionary said they were killing the locals the way you or I would kill a mosquito. They just went nuts. And so they sent them out, and they would come back with rubber. And this would go to fuel the Industrial Revolution for hoses and gaskets and tires and all this stuff that suddenly we needed. And it was during that time that these gangs of foreigners would go into the jungle to enslave the natives, that these uncontacted tribes went back into the jungle and said, not us. And they have 6-foot bows and 7-foot arrows with bamboo tips. They make the bamboo tips into razor blades. And so when those things fly, actually one of my rangers, one of the Jungle Keepers team, was present when the tribes had come out onto the river, and he tried to help them because they're nomadic and they live out there. And so there's an element of like brother, like,
Yeah.
they're trying to be like, you don't need to be like this. Like, we're friendly. So they sent a canoe across the river with bananas. And so he's up to his waist in the river, and the tribes are right across the river. And they shot, and he sees the arrow coming right at his head. And as he moved to the side, it hit him at the temple and sliced him back towards the ear, opening him to the skull. He's fine. But let me tell you something, when he goes and gets a crew cut, it's the most badass the scar you've ever seen, man. And so he always keeps it real short on that side. But even if you try to help them, they're not necessarily friendly.
That's a tough lesson.
Yeah.